Thanks for tuning in to Your Media Podcast. I'm Alex. This is my business partner, Spencer. And today we are here with Ken Rusk, author and entrepreneur. Ken started off his working life getting his hands dirty in the construction business. And since then, he has built a big business that's right here in Toledo, and he's launched multiple successful endeavors over the last 30 years. He's an entrepreneur, mentor, life coach. He has extensive experience in hiring, training, and developing first-time job seekers, especially ones that don't have a college degree. He lives right here in Toledo, where he runs Rusk Industries Incorporated, which specializes in multiple facets of construction. And he's here today to talk about his book, Blue Collar Cash: Love Your Work, Secure Your Future, and Find Happiness for Life. Ken, thanks for coming on the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
That was quite the intro.
This is a
It was.
Did I do okay? You
did
wrote
great.
most of it. So.
You did really great. I don't know if I even deserve all that, but you did really great.
This is a legit book, man.
Yeah, it's
Thank
a real
you.
deal. I was impressed because everyone and their mom claims to be an author, but this is a real deal. It's really published. That's awesome. Take me back. I always say that. Take me back to digging ditches. Is that right? Or
Yeah.
around foundations?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple story. I went to a high school, and there was a fence that separated my high school from the carryout that we used to go to after school just to hang out. And there was a hole in that fence, and when you got through there, you'd walk to the carryout, but you'd have to go through this industrial park to get there. And there was a building there that always had a lot of energy, a lot of people, a lot of things moving around, things that all kids love to see, like dump trucks and jackhammers and, all that kind of construction-y stuff, bobcats and whatever. So I remember just walking in there one day and said, hey, I need some money. I need some, gas money or pizza money for my girlfriend or date money, whatever you wanted to do, that kind of thing. So I just stopped in there and said, what do you do? And I knew someone that had worked there. And so they said, well, this is what we do. We dig up foundations and fix them and whatnot. So I said, I can do that. And I started working there at 15. And I hate to say it, but I've been there ever since. It's been probably like 40 years now that I've been still doing it. So pretty good stuff.
Those are always the most inspirational stories where people... My uncle's another example of this. He started as a dishwasher at Bob Evans, and then he retired as like vice president of Bob Evans.
Right,
and
really cool.
To work all the way up. So how you're still with that company?
Yeah. So what happened was I did that during the 15, 16, 17, 18, and then after that point it was like, okay, here's the moment of truth. Am I going to college or what am I going to do? And I really loved working with my hands. I did a lot of different jobs. I did landscaping, and I really loved that because creating beautiful pictures in front of a home is just amazing. Yeah. And so I did a lot of those kinds of things, and I thought, I'm not so sure that this is going to be for me, the whole college thing. So I tried to go to school. And within 3 months, I'm like, this isn't going to work for me. So there was an opportunity that opened up within the company that I had worked for where they were going to replicate themselves because they had grown so big. They needed to open up branches or franchises, if you will. And so they paid me to go around the country and set up new companies, which meant I could learn how to be an entrepreneur on somebody else's dime. So it was really fortunate for me. And I thought, what better school than to actually get immersed in what you're going to eventually do. Yeah. So I did that for a while, and then we moved out to Toledo. Living out of a suitcase is something you want to do for only a short period of time.
Sure.
Builds character.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there were Sunday nights where I was like too lazy to repack, so I just changed my underwear and my t-shirts and my socks and left the suit in the bag and went right back out again.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So. So that led to moving to Toledo, and we started with 6 people, and now we have almost 200 at times. So it's been pretty cool.
Very cool, man. Very good. I also don't have a college degree. We're self-taught in this video industry. I went for about 3 months as well.
Okay.
Spencer does have a.
I went all the way.
You went all the way.
I graduated the whole 9, and I don't regret going. But looking at what I do now, obviously yeah, I mean, I have a degree in communications and business, so
There you go.
Which probably helped a little bit.
maybe
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it was more the experience of going and like talking with people and communicating like in the college, but not
Yeah.
actually doing the work necessarily.
Well, and
you know?
that's the one thing that I always try to make clear at the very beginning is that I'm absolutely not an anti-college guy in any way. I mean,
Right.
if you're going to operate on my shoulder, or if you're going to manage money or teach somebody something or build a skyscraper, you better know exactly what you're doing. And so if you're going to a college for a specific reason, yeah, have at it, do it, and God bless you for all that. But if you're just going to go because people tell you that you have to, and you're going to spend 4 years learning how to be really good at beer pong and then come out with a degree that you not necessarily know what you're going to do with, that's the one where I say, there's a better opportunity, especially for those that are going to get themselves in a lot of debt doing that and then not really have a reason to use it when they come out. That's the scary side of it. So,
Yeah, and that's such a common thing with, that was how it was for me. I got out of high school, my parents were like, and love my parents, but they were kind of just like, you're going to go to college or you're going to start paying rent. And then when you're a kid, you're just like, well, I'll just go to college. Why not? And then you go through it and you graduate and you have all this debt and you don't, unless you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor or a nurse where it's clearly this is what you're going to do. It's kind of up in the air. Like, where do you go? So
what kinds of things should we be telling our kids to make sure they ask all the right questions and to find out for themselves if college is right for them?
Well, first off, that's a really great question, and that's one of the impetuses for writing this book, because so many kids came into our organization, and in many cases, they were 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, and they're just trying to figure out what their world's going to be like. So they would come in and to them, it was like they got out of high school and they were handed an axe and they said, there's the forest, start chopping. And that was the only advice that they got. And after 5 minutes of, whacking at the first tree they came upon, they turned around and they said, well, where am I going, Mom, Dad? What am I doing this for? And it's like, just keep chopping. That was the best answer we could give them. So for me, it just came down to, I became almost an involuntary life coach. And, helping people with their first cars and their first visa and their first checking account, their first apartment. And it just kind of went on from there. So I think the best advice is probably some of the advice that we got in feedback from the book, which is, a parent or a grandparent, aunt, uncle, a mentor of any kind, they tend to read this book and then they sit down with their kids or their mentees, if you will, and they just have these amazing conversations about the options that are out there. So, for me, you hit it on the head earlier when you said, you're going to college. Well, that's like the default mechanism that parents and high school teachers and colleges have, especially colleges, because that's where the revenue goes. But it's not just an automatic. It can't be just this knee-jerk, that just has to happen and nothing else. Because if that were to happen, which it is, you create this giant black hole of demand for blue-collar workers on the other side of that pendulum swing. And that's where the money tends to go, because where supply is low and demand is high. I mean, you've got carpenters in this town that are making as much as family doctors now.
Yeah, for sure. And that was the next thing on I wanted to bring up is, there's a deficit because I feel like ever since college became more and more common, it's knee jerk. It's like, you're going to go to college. And I think it's almost like taboo in a way where if your kid's not in college, it's like, well, my kid's a failure then. And I think that's stupid thinking. And
that's the really sad part, because, it was just, I don't know that it's anyone's fault. It was kind of a natural progression for this to happen. I mean, first off, we started raising our kids on, cell phones and iPads. I mean, they're building tree forts on their little pads instead of doing it in the backyard, right?
Yeah.
And then you take shop class out of high school and you replace it with a room full of computers. And that's a great idea. You got to learn computers, but why did it have to be one or the other? Why couldn't it have been both? Because now you've eliminated millions of kids from discovering a trade or a skill that they would have loved to do, and they just get funneled almost involuntarily into a college scenario, and that's just not healthy for an economy or even for the people that are going through it. So,
and the money too, like the amount of people that I know who, you're going to go to college, maybe their parents even signed them up for it, signed the loan application, all that, and then they go for a year, and then they either drop out or whatever. And then they're left with all this debt. And then they pay on it for years and years, and it's just
You know, the average debt is anywhere between 60 and 80,000. Okay, and last year the average salary for a non-specific degree, a typical business degree, was just under 50. So if you net that number out after taxes, it's going to take you a long time to pay that money off. And when a kid realizes that he's not using the degree and he's working every day to pay that off, because only, you know, they claim that 37% of kids that graduate from college never go into the field they studied for. Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot of college kids, and that's a lot of debt. So they come out of this thing going, why wasn't I led better than this? Why wasn't I advised better than this? Because now I've got this, I have enough money to buy a house in debt right now.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
And I'm not using the degree that I went there for. I mean, there's like an insanity to that.
Yeah.
So all I'm trying to do is just say, let's just put the brakes on this automatic path and just have you sit down with your child and just look around and say, what else is there? What do you like to do? Maybe let them go do a couple of these internships or apprenticeships and just see what happens.
For sure.
Yeah. What's your opinion on the vocational schools and the trade schools coming up? Is that a good route for people that want to go into?
It absolutely is. I mean, you know, if you know anything about your child, okay, you know that some kids are tactile. I mean, they just love to build things, or they're good at, maybe coding things, or they're good at just creating things, or maybe they love to be in the kitchen and they love to create, bakery, or they're good at landscaping, or whatever it is. You just got to keep an eye on that, because that is an option that, if you realize that this kid, it might be better served going into one of those schools. I mean, trade schools are $13,000 a year in total. I mean, it's versus what you get on the other side. But here's the best part about that, and this is one of the things that I always like to point out. People go, "Oh my God, I never even thought about it that way." But if you look at a college that may cost you $40,000 or $50,000 a year, that's $160,000 to $200,000 when you're all done, right? Okay. Now you get into a vocational a tech school or a trade school where you're actually making $40,000 or $50,000 a year as an assistant carpenter, electrician, plumber, welder, whatever. Okay. That's a positive $160,000 to $200,000. So by the time you're done with this thing, you have almost a $400,000 net swing to the positive side of your asset base,
right?
And you're only 22 years old.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So crazy. I mean, those are real numbers. I mean, that's money that could be sitting in someone's 401k. It could have paid for their first house and their car, and set them onto a life of comfort, peace, and freedom, which is really what we should all be after. So you just got to really be careful, because these numbers add up quick, and when it's all over, you can't go back and undo that and say, "Wow, I want to start over. I want to do over." So all I'm trying to do is just get them to say, "Okay, let's just take a little bit of time here and figure this out before we jump into anything."
What do you think of, do you think the employers are to blame for this whole, almost college being a mandatory type thing? Because, for example, I got out of college and I delivered pizzas for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then I actually ended up getting a job at Verizon as a salesman.
Okay.
Now, at Verizon, you either had to have, 2 years of experience selling, or you had to have a 4-year degree. And then once I get there, I'm asking myself, why do I need a 4-year degree to sell phones?
Well, I can tell you, I can tell you this. The best way I can answer that question is the CEO of Apple Computer came out and said that last year, 50% of the people he hired did not have any degree at all. And it's because they realized that we may have overcooked this whole, gatekeeper thing about getting into businesses, because I think that was to people's detriment to require all this schooling. It may sound good on paper, and it may sound good because maybe the bosses went through that process themselves. But at the end of the day, you still have to have an individual that is sharp, on time, hardworking, focused, goal-oriented, maybe vision-based. I mean, you still got to have someone that has those characteristics, and no piece of paper is going to make that happen in someone. So I think they were starting to realize that we might have we might have hurt ourselves in the process of requiring all this information from people that maybe isn't necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. So how bad is this deficit of blue collar workers? Like, what are we really short on?
Well, if you look at it this way, the best way to judge that is to attempt to hire one of these people. Try to find a good finish carpenter, or welding or plumbing or electricians or whatever, and ask them. Okay, they're making you wait months to come to your house. The prices are crazy good. For them, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because supply and demand works, it's a pretty simple, powerful process. If you oversupply the market with college grads in non-specific degrees, then their wages drop.
Yeah.
And look at it. Less than $50,000 a year to come out of college is not something that excites too many people, right? Now, if you undersupply the market on the other side, those guys are going to be so busy that they're going to start raising their prices and demand more of their time, and it's just a natural thing. So, pretty much anybody on the trade side can get into an apprenticeship, and within a very short period of time, start making some pretty serious money. We're looking at dollars per hour, $38, $42, $52 an hour. Those are six-figure jobs if you think of the overtime and everything else, and that's a great way to get your life started.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you about, because we're obviously in the creative space, and to me, a degree basically just, I feel like to a lot of employers signifies they showed up, they did what they were told, and then therefore they will be a good minion. They'll do what I tell them. Yeah. In the creative space, particularly with people that we know who went to college for film, this doesn't apply to everyone we know who went to college for film, but we always joke around that if you have a film degree, that's a demerit. That's a negative. Because most people that have the degree in the arts, at least from what I've seen, are like not as good as the people who don't, because maybe it wasn't fueled by passion. It was just, I hate film the least of everything, so I'll major in that.
Well, this is a really funny story. So I interviewed this gal who she tried to get her 2-year degree, and it just kept taking forever. And she had a couple kids, and it just kept taking forever.
Sure.
And it was years into this thing, so she was almost done. She needed one more elective class, so she's like, all right, I'm going to finally drag myself back in and get this done. So she asked a buddy of hers, what should she do? And the guy says, you ought to try this welding class. It's really awesome. It's a great elective, and you'll have fun doing it. Before she graduated from that class, she had a job for a major welding company in town, and now she stands on top of 300-foot tall windmills building things, and this gal is making $150,000 a year. And it was by total accident.
See, I wish colleges would do that.
So if you think about that.
Like I feel you got to put these kids in front of a bunch of different things, because I think the number one thing is finding out what you actually want to do. And I think you learn that from experience. Like we were talking about video before the podcast, you do everything and then narrow it down.
Yeah, it's a shame that the schools don't kind of combine these programs a little bit, because you should still have the option of swinging a hammer or learning to do something medical. You should still have that option as you continue to grow, and it seems like that option gets kind of cut off once you enter the college field. You know what I mean? So it's tough, because these careers are just great careers. You get to work outside. You get to be in control of your own input and your own output. In many cases, you get in control of your own, obviously the own quality of your work, and therefore the referrals, and therefore your income. So you can work as hard as you want to go after the life goals that you've set for yourself. And that's probably the most important part of the book, is to really spend time drawing what you want your life to look like, and then going after that one piece at a time.
For sure.
And this is very important work. We need these people.
I can tell you this. I don't care how cold it is or how the pandemic, affects people or whatever. You still see people building the roundabout on each side of 23 over there.
Sure.
Right? And somebody has to do that work. Somebody has to create bridges and, new streets and fix pipes that break and do all the things that we need to make our society function normally. And that work never stops. That stuff just keeps on going.
I think one of the problems might be that people don't find their passion. They don't really know what they want to do, and they're not really urged to or given any tools to figure out what they want to do. what do you think we could do to help kids find out what they want to do earlier in life?
There's a lot more support now for like gap year kind of programs, or when they get out of high school, they try different things. I mean, between my office and 23, there's probably 30 for sale, or I'm sorry, for help wanted signs there. You know what I mean? Help wanted signs. So it's a higher ease market right now. I mean, you can job shop all you want.
Sure.
And it would be great to kind of bounce around and do a couple things and kind of learn what you might be really interested in before you commit to 4 years and all the debt that goes with it. So the other thing is, I think if you're like a midlifer and you're sitting at this cubicle and you're like, why am I doing this? There are so many cool ways with the internet now that you can kind of transition. That you start off with what's called a side hustle, and
sure.
I've seen many guys do this where they're this by day and they're this by night. Guys and gals who are craftsmen, or they want to build things and you can sell them on the internet, or you can build web pages for yourself and start your business, and then you slowly transition away from the one and more into the other. And we've seen guys do this with furniture, and that's just something they always wanted to do. And then pretty soon, now that's their full-time thing. So, it's never too late. I mean, we've gotten feedback from people that are 15 years old and people that are 75 years old that said, hey, wow, there's something in this book for me to help me figure out what I want to do.
So do you have guys on your staff guys or ladies on your staff that went to college for the construction and the trades and stuff?
Typically not in my situation. I mean, there's obviously there's management, there's office work, there's all those kinds of things, and some of those require that you go to college. Those kinds of things. The beautiful part about what we like to do is we like to start people off right off the bat saying, okay, let's figure out what you want your life to look like, and let's draw that out on a big piece of cardboard or a big poster board with good old-fashioned Crayola crayons, and then let's get that as specific as we can get it, Are you a house person? Are you an apartment person? Are you a condo person? Are you a city liver, or you want to live out in the suburbs or in the rural farm towns or whatever? And are you a car, a pickup? Are you a scooter? Are you an electric vehicle person? Tell me about what you see your little nirvana looking like. Dog or cat, and if so, what kind, and what would you name it?
Sure.
So you just really draw this picture of your hobbies and maybe your charitable giving back and what your family, what you like, you would want that to look like, and then just create this picture, and then let's just start chopping it up into little bits, and let's take that axe that I talked to you about earlier, and let's have some focus to it. Let's just chop down that one goal at a time and actually create something where now you're building your life, you're building your asset base, and you become this goal-oriented machine who is really self-motivated and self-managed, and that's the best kind of person. I always say live a life of anticipation as many ways as you can, because that's the fun way to live.
And I think it's so important to set smaller goals. I feel like people miss that. Oh, I want to be a whatever, and then they just see that's the ultimate end goal. But within that is 1,000 little goals, little steps.
We call them steps. It's best to begin with the end in mind and know what that looks like, and then walk your way to it. But I think for me, the small ones give you the confidence to win. So let's pick a small one, like I'm going to pay off that nagging visa bill, or I'm going to finish that class I want to take, or I wanted to, maybe I have a exercise goal that I want to hit, or a 5K that I want to run. Let's hit one of those little ones, and then that builds the confidence to have you do a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year one. And then you become this person that, again, kind of knows what they want, and they just go after it on their own. And they almost are like, hey, Ken, thanks for the training. Now get out of my way and let me do it.
Sure.
Which is really cool. It's fun to see that.
Yeah, time definitely has a way of getting away from you. I feel like if you don't act, I mean, obviously you're older than we are, but the years now.
Now, why did he say obviously I'm older than you?
No, but the years just seem to fly by, and
they do.
I think Sarah Silverman says it. She's like, if you ever say like I'm thinking about doing it, you're never gonna do it.
Well, there's a whole chapter in the book that's called the Somedayer Club versus the Two-Dayer Club, and it talks about that specific thing, where if you hear somebody say, Well, someday I'm going to make that happen. It's just a hope, or it's a wish, or it's a dream, or it's like a vision, but it's not clear enough to move up to today.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the thing. You got to start with the small ones, because those are today goals, and then they teach you how to take the big ones down in today fashion as well.
Exactly.
So what's your day to day like now? What are you doing? Are you still getting your hands dirty and doing construction? Or?
Well, yeah. I mean, we have, I love going out and hanging out with the guys in the warehouse, because that's where all the noise and all the action is. So I like to do that at the end of the day when they come back, and it's just a lot of fun. I still get involved in coaching. We have a lot of people at the office that have these goals, and we have these giant boards that they write their goals on, and they put them into action. They're very specific, so we update that all the time, and it's fun to watch them win things. Connor and I have had some fun times this year with the goals that he's hit already, which is really cool. And we just try to replicate that as much as we can, because, again, if I can surround myself with a bunch of people who kind of think like we do, which is let's just go make our life happen, there's nothing stopping us and we're in control, that just makes the company function really well. So, there's that, and then there's the other things. We do a lot of other construction type things around the country, and it's just it keeps us busy. But this has been a really, really fun project, and it's grown into something beyond just what I had thought it would be. And I'm very blessed to have gotten it this far, and I hope to continue to make it happen. So,
you think you're going to write another book?
It's funny, because going through this whole process, and I've been asked that a bunch of times, going through this whole process, as I said before, I think writing the book, it may become the easiest part, right?
Yeah.
So I have other ideas about follow-ups to this that I'd like to pursue, and we'll see how this one goes, and then take it from there.
You're gonna write a white collar cash?
Yeah. Well, that's so weird that you say that, because the more people read this book, the more they say, you know what, it's not necessarily all blue collar related, because it can teach anybody how to think better.
Exactly.
So the first several chapters talk about just, no matter who you are, how to find a better way to think. So I could almost make it white and blue collar cash.
And also, like we said, it's like it focuses a lot on blue collar, but it applies absolutely to the creative industry too, because it's you don't need a college degree.
One of the people that helped me finish up the cleaning up the manuscript and whatnot, amazing gal from Cincinnati, she said, without this book, I would have never just gotten off the couch and got my family around the table and said, all right, we're going to take this RV trip out west. And they did it. And she said, we're already planning a trip to Europe, because their roots are in Scotland, and they're going to go do that. And she said, here I am thinking that I'm the one doling out advice to people, and yet I read this and I say to myself, wow, why am I not doing this? So she literally is now doing things because of this book. And she said, here you are, this first-time writer from Toledo, and I write books for a living, and I'm living out some of the things that you talk about. So I've been very, very blessed to have the amazing feedback that we've gotten so far.
Yeah, that's probably the best part, is hearing those kind of stories and how you actually help people. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, how do you go about writing a book? How did this whole process go? Because it seems like a very daunting task. So how did you organize it and get it done?
Yeah, it's interesting, because I originally my daughter got sick about 12 years ago, and I remember wanting to spend a lot more time, thinking about her and her future, and helping to guide her a little bit. And she's fine now, thank God. But there was a time when I was thinking about what was important that I could share with her. And I kept coming back to these couple of words, comfort, peace, and freedom. And then there was just these stories that kept coming back from my past, friends that have been through challenges, people that have overcome, crazy childhood crime in their family, or really serious addiction, or just the most incredible headwinds of challenge that overcame those things. And I just started kind of writing those stories down, and then pretty soon it went from 1,000 words to 80,000 words, and I didn't think the thing would go 10 feet, much less 10 miles, and I ended up just Googling an editor in New York, and then I had a great conversation with him, and he hooked me up with one of his editors, and then we polished it up a little bit, and then it went to an agent, and then it went to the publisher, and there again, the publisher only buys 1% of the books they look at, and then they love this idea, and then it became PR people and digital people, and then Connor and I got involved together, and this became kind of a thing. So looking back on it, I say that the easiest part was writing the book, because when you sit down and you have a belief or a passion in something, sometimes the words just come. And I remember being on a plane, and I was writing feverishly on this pad, and I was shaking my hand because it was getting sore. And the guy next to me says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm writing a book. I'm not quite sure, but I think I am."
Right.
And he says, "No, I get it, but you're writing this book." And I literally had 12 legal pads full of ink.
Yeah, you wrote it by hand.
Yeah, because I mean, I would type 6 words and have to erase 3 of them. So for me, it just wasn't that easy, So I actually had my daughter help me type it when it was all
Not
done.
a good typer, huh?
No, I just couldn't do it. It would take me forever. But I would read the book to her, and she would type away, and it was a really fun experience. But yeah, I never really said tomorrow I'm going to write a book. It just kind of evolved and happened that way.
What was your thought when you got it? Because, we used to have a band, for example, and then you write the songs, you come up with the album cover, and then you get it produced, and you get to hold it, the physical copy of it, and you're like, holy crap, I made this. That's got to be a pretty good feeling.
It was a really awesome feeling. The thing for me, though, was, would it be accepted? So
sure.
I loved holding it in my hand. We got our first box full of them. I remember Connor and I were really excited because we got this first box, and we opened it up, and there's these books in there, and it was really cool, and people wanted them. And then people would ask me to sign them, and I'm like, okay, that's just too surreal for me, okay?
Sure.
I mean, here's this nobody from Toledo, and now I'm signing a book for someone. But to me, it really started to feel good when I got the feedback, and it's been really cool to have people go, God, I mean, if you read some of the reviews, there's one on Amazon where the guy said, I bought this book for my father, and he read it, and he can't stop talking about it, and he says every high schooler should read this book. This is really what we need to be talking about right now. And when you hear things like that, or a gal that her and her son are having these amazing and really unexpected, open and honest conversations now because of what they read, to me, that's holding the book in my hand, is holding the feeling of the fact that it's affecting people in a great way.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. The art influencing people, and then getting that reassurance back. That's the validation, I think, is the best part of the whole thing.
Yeah, it truly is, and I hope it continues to go. We're doing pretty well with it, and we just want to keep getting the word out there. It's starting to spread around the country a little bit, which is pretty cool.
Now, I love the hard copy of a book. Like, I read books. I don't like the Kindle and all that stuff, but I'm weird compared to my generation.
No.
But, is there like an audio version of it? Or
there is,
digital version of it?
Yeah, you can get it on audio. If you go to it, like if you just went to Amazon and ordered it, it'll give you options to do it on Kindle, on the other ways, audiobook, and you can do it that way as well.
Was it you reading it?
That's so funny. I actually had the nerve to call my publisher and say, hey, listen, I want to do this myself. I want to speak the book. And they're like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And they said, maybe your 5th one, you can do that, okay? We ended up getting this gentleman who was on a crime series on TV, and they hired him to do it. And he sounds good, so it probably sounds better than I would. But apparently it's a lot more difficult than people think, because if you take breaks and whatnot, or you go over days or whatnot, you have to make sure your voice is exactly the same as it was the day before, which doesn't always happen, believe it or not. So,
well, have you ever done any voiceover work?
I have not. I have not.
I have. I have a vocal booth, and that's very true. And it's tough, man. Reading a whole book, I can't even imagine.
I think if Hillary Clinton read her book, then anybody can do it. Have you seen the Howard Stern? He'll chop up people's audiobooks and have them say a bunch of wacky stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did that with Hillary's.
I wouldn't put it past him. That guy's pretty creative. He's been that way for a long time.
Yeah, it's an honor to have him parody. It gets pretty nasty, but it's good fun.
You're right. I think if he makes fun of you, you must be doing something right.
Yeah, it's like Weird Al. If he parodies your song, you've made it. That's the pinnacle.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
What's next for you?
Well, again, for me, I want to finish this. I don't feel like I'm done yet until it gets to a place where I feel like it has enough acceptance where it's helped people. I will say this. We've been contacted recently by some people who think it would be great for people who are, early adults who are suffering from addictions and whatnot, and they're kind of lost, and they don't feel like they have control over their own lives. And that just happened in the last couple of days, and there's a place in the United States that we're working with who wants to give it to all of their people that are in the drug rehab program. And they're going to make it mandatory reading for them. And I thought that was really cool because, some people, they just need that break. They did something wrong and they get it, and now they have to figure out how to get out of that. And, I believe in second chances, and there's a guy in this book who's had multiple second chances in town here who now is the most successful builder in Toledo, and it's an amazing story. And I thought that was such a compelling story. I mean, when I was interviewing him, we both were crying during the interview. It was like we were sitting at this restaurant and people are walking up going, why are these two people crying with each other right now? Why is the one guy writing down notes on a piece of paper? But it was just an amazing experience. And I think if that kind of thing starts to blossom and it works around the country to help people get over addictions, or, maybe a second chance, they're coming out of a halfway house situation because they got in trouble doing something, I think that would be a really amazing scenario. And then I really want to keep pushing the school thing. We're building a curriculum right now where after you read the book, it's almost like, okay, now that you've read it, let's put some of this into practice. Let's have you maybe talk about what your goals and visions are. Let's take you back when you were younger and some of the things that guided you back then and what kept you on the path, what took you off those paths. And so we're going to build a curriculum to help people kind of take the book to the next level in their own lives. And if all those things become successful, I think we'll have hit a home run. So
I think that's important. I think accountability is so important because, when we started this company, we've had many conversations like, we need to be better on social media. So we'll post for a few days and then you forget about it. But just recently, we actually implemented a system that keeps us accountable, make sure that we're staying on top of that. And I think that's important because, a great thought without a system to really implement it,
Well, and the other thing I think is really important, and again, this happened to me when my daughter was ill. I had a lot of people step up, and I was just blown away by the generosity of people. So I had always believed in charity before that, but, it's just something that's in my DNA now. So we practice a lot of giving back at our office. And so I'm giving my portion of all the proceeds to this book to Make-A-Wish. It's something I've been doing for 20 years. And we're going to try and this fall see if instead of doing our one wish a year, which we always grant at our company, we're going to see if we can't push for maybe 3 or 4 or 5 wishes yet this year and see if the book sales will be able to support that. So anybody out there listening, if you buy a book, you not only get the book, but you also help someone with a wish. Someone who's suffering pretty badly, and I just love those little fighters because, there's no more inspiring story than a young child who's fighting through something and then gets to the other side and they beat their battle, and it's just a great thing to have happen.
Nope. Very cool, man.
And that's how you know that you're the real deal. That you're not in it for the money. You're really in it to help people. I think that's really admirable.
Yeah, I think, I heard the saying once, to whom much is given, much is expected. And to me, it's all about, hey, this is something I think we're all meant to do. And the one thing I want to make sure that everyone understands is you don't have to have become successful at something in order to give back. I mean, what most people don't realize is you can take $11 worth of macaroni and cheese and salad and go to Ronald McDonald House and make those families a dinner. And it costs you nothing to do other than $11 in your time. And you will feel so great that you did that because now you got some kid maybe suffering across the street in the hospital and the parents are staying at Ronald McDonald House. And it's just a tough situation. They're all in this huge battle. They don't want to think about cooking or anything like that. So we do that once or twice a year. We go there, make them a big feast. And again, it doesn't cost much money. It just costs your time. But when you walk away from that, you feel like $1 million. So.
Well, I know that you have another podcast today that you got to get to. You're a popular guy.
Yeah.
That's a celebrity, yeah.
No, I don't think so. We're working. That's not the end game. But if the book sales help people with their lives, that would be the end game. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
But thank you for coming on the show. And I want to, where's all the options that we can buy this book? I'm sure you can get it on Amazon. We don't want to support Jeff Bezos any more than we have to.
Right. You can you can go on Amazon, but they also have a really awesome indie book button there. So you can get it on Indie Books where, they support all the individual bookstores around the country, and you can get it on, at Barnes & Nobles and Apple Books and all those. But you can support it in any way you want. You can also visit Blue Collar Cash, hashtag Blue Collar Cash, which is part of the website, kenrusk.com, and you can see what we're up to over there. If somebody wants to read some really good stuff, I have some people that help us compile some really great information on my Facebook page, which is Ken Rusk Official, and it talks all about the transitioning and the blue-collar opportunities that are available, and it just has some good life advice on there, so you can kind of follow that along as well.
Excellent.
Very good. This has been Your Media Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.